I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Mystical Block. Now, last episode, me and my buddy Greg here, we got ourselves tons and tons of EMC production started. As you can see behind me, we have tons of these power flowers, and we can make more and more. As you can see, we're already up to 600 trillion EMC, which is great and all, but we're going to need way more than that in order to effectively use our EMC. But today, we are going to be letting this continue to generate as we work on some other things that I know is going to take some time, and that is going to be Creative Essence. So in this list here, Creative Essence is probably one of the biggest time sinks from what I could tell. And because of that, we need to get this going as soon as possible. It'll also allow us to use it in the future. But what I want to be able to do is mass produce Insanium Essence. And I mean mass produce it on a large scale, have it go into my refined storage system, and then allow my storage system to craft down from Insanium, thus allowing us to do auto crafting with Mystical Agriculture. That is ultimately going to be the goal of today's episode. Now, how am I going to go about doing that? That's a good question, because there are many different ways. Now, one of those ways is mass farming it via the land, just like we're doing here. But this requires a ton of lily pads, and we might not exactly have the resources to make these lily pads, as these are not EMCable. They just rely on our mob farm working, which, I mean, is producing quite a bit of the materials to make this. But then we run into a problem. Well, we need to make sure we're harvesting it fast enough. I think there's a much better solution to our problem here. Now, I think this is where these seed reprocessors are really going to come into play. I noticed that seeds, specifically the base Inferium seeds, they have EMC, which that means we can utilize this right here. So let's give this some power from our main network. As this does cost a little bit of power, I'm not quite sure exactly how much, and it does have progressively higher tiers going all the way up to Insanium. But as you can see right here, we can feed this some sort of fuel source or give it power, and we can feed it seeds. Now, Inferium seeds are the ones that I want to give to this. And if we feed this a seed, you can see it takes a little bit of time. This is the lowest tier, by the way, but it gives us Inferium Essence, allowing us to farm this. And it gives us 2 per 1 seed. And this one Inferium seed only costs 1 EMC. So we should be able to use this to mass produce Inferium Essence, and we can do it early on, allowing us to have this supply when we need it most, which is going to be later on. Now, here's where things are going to get a little bit more challenging. I need to set up autocrafts for these, because if we take a look at the reprocessor, these things get kind of expensive. They keep going up. They require us to have multiple things, including prosperity shards, which are not EMCable, by the way, but we can actually craft prosperity shards. So to craft prosperity shards, we actually need to smelt an entire block of Inferium in order to get this, and it only gets us 1. So one part of this reprocessor probably needs to be dedicated to specifically making prosperity shards. Now, since I probably already have plenty of Supremium at this point, or at least enough to start working with, I can go ahead and start getting the autocraft set up for it. Now, if we had Insanium, we could take a look at this. If we go Essence, and we start off with Insanium, we can go ahead and say, okay, well, I need to craft Supremium. To do that, I would just tell it, let's craft down. That's going to give me 4. And if we're going to be mass producing Insanium, we'll always have the Insanium supply, which means that we don't have to worry about crafting up, which is how most people would probably want to do this. Instead, we're going to be crafting down. And this is always going to be providing us with new essence, so we should be okay to do this. So with all of our patterns made, I'm going to throw this inside of an iron crafter, which is really nice because it gives us more space, like actually way more space, 2 more lines, in fact, on just the base tier iron crafter. This is also one of the reasons why I went with this particular mod instead of applied energistics. I went with refined storage. And that is because these crafters are so powerful. And once you go up to the max tier with max speed upgrades, they craft at a ungodly speed. Like, it is so fast. You could have stacks of things done in no time flat. Now, at the moment, I haven't started working on mechanism. Mechanism is going to be one of the mods that is probably going to be the best source of smelting things. But for right now, I can go ahead and just utilize my Supremium Furnace for this exact task. Now to automate this, it's actually not too difficult. And to get things auto crafting in a basic Supremium Furnace, well, we need to supply it with coal at all times. So this is where a exporter is going to come into play. However, I'm going to need a couple of exporters, I think. Exporter is going to go right here, and this is going to say, hey, we need coal. So I can go ahead and send this coal, and that should end up filling up inside here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put this on the back to try and hide it a little bit. So yes, it can go in the back, any of the main sides. I think the front can even accept coal, but it works the same way as a vanilla furnace. So you need to supply it here. Now on the bottom, this is going to just simply accept an importer, which is going to send the items into our system and complete our autocraft. And so we can just leave that basically blank. Now I know a lot of you are probably wondering, Chosen, why have you not made flight at this point? You know you can fly, right? I completely know I can fly. I just have chose not to set up flight yet. You know what? I don't even know why, because it's so easy to make a Rendingale. You know what? Maybe I just enjoy walking, chat. I do. I just enjoy walking around. Oh, goodness. All right. But I have up here a iron crafter. This is where we're going to put the autocrafts in. And so this should just produce, and we should be good to go to set up any sort of production, including taking essence, now that we have the ability to craft it, and making a pattern for a block. So this is going to autocraft the block. And now we need to make a pattern that makes prosperity shards. And so to do that, we just simply set up a smelting recipe right here. And then we just put that in this. And now I should be able to craft by holding down Control and Shift. If there's items in, I can request a craft. And it should start. And as you can see, it's now producing the prosperity shards we need. And it's auto-crafted. Now in the future, this will definitely be getting upgraded and will be most likely set up with Mechanism once we dive into Mechanism, which honestly is going to be pretty easy. Almost everything from Mechanism in this pack has EMC values. So I know these reprocessors are going to be amazing for us, but my goodness, the crafting tree that is required for these, it is just a lot of stuff. As you can see right here, for one, we need to make sure we have the prosperity able to be crafted up. So we can just put that down here. But I have all of the reprocessors set up for patterns. Now I have to go through and make sure that each part of this can be crafted. Now I already have the basic one set up, but to move into the next tier, we need to make sure we have all these things, including actually the main tier, which is going to require us to autocraft hose, for example. I could just provide this with a lot of hose, but since it's a single item, it's going to be pretty hard to do this. All of the base stuff here, however, does have EMC. So Solarium is actually kind of nice that we have EMC for that. So now that I have an entire refined storage crafter almost filled up with all the recipes required, let's see if we can do this. So Supremium right now I have 201, but this is going to start increasing very fast as we get these reprocessors. So at the moment, let's go ahead and just try to craft a Supremium reprocessor. This is going to take a little bit of time, but we should start to notice, for example, well, I thought it was going to take a little bit of time, but there it goes. We already have one. So that's pretty nice. And I do want to eventually use the Insanium ones, and I do have that stuff ready. But let's see how much faster this actually works compared to the first tier, which we've seen just a minute ago. So how much faster is this? It's significantly faster, and it will be increasingly faster within the next one. Okay, and we can see how much fuel it's going to use, and operations per tick is 1 operation per tick, where this one's in operation 5. The speed is 5 ticks per operation. This is 1 tick, or 1 operation per tick, which is really, really fast. So this is already fast on its own, and is producing just with one machine, probably the equivalent of what this whole farm has been producing up until this point. Oh, this is so nice. Now I know I'm going to need tons of these set up, but what I think I can do right now is get it hooked into at least this crafter for right now. So we can have 6 of these running, and that is going to hopefully produce enough Insanium for us to be able to make these Insanium reprocessors that we can then use. So let's get the basic essence of how we're going to set this farm up. Now, I want to test something out. I know we can use pipes. Pipes are definitely a easy way of setting this up, but I want to try and utilize modular routers. For one, these can be hidden, and they're basically wireless power, wireless item transport, and all of that craziness. It can be done with a modular router. And like I said, even the block itself can be hidden and is quite efficient at doing this. So let's start off first with how do we send power with modular routers? So this is going to be an energy distributor module, and all of these are modules, as you can see right here. And then we also have upgrades. So to allow this machine to accept power, we need to first give it an upgrade. So I've just got it here, and as you can see right here, we now have an energy bar. And I believe we can feed this energy by just giving it power here, and that buffer goes up. So we've now sent power to this modular router, but we need to tell it where to send it. So what we can do is use this distributor, and we shift right click onto the machines, and this can go up to a range, it says right here, of 8 blocks, a max of 48 when you have range upgrades. So you could technically send this quite far, but inside here, this is just fine having this amount in it. And we can put this here, and now these should start receiving power. It's going to be pretty slow at first because we don't have any speed upgrades. So let's go ahead and add some speed upgrades and see if that is going to make things go a little bit faster. You can see our buffer, however, that is our limiting factor. So I'm wondering if the actual speed upgrade itself, if this can be upgraded in any way. So it does seem like the more energy upgrades we put in here, the more we can send. So if we just put the max upgrades, which is 64 in here, then we should be able to see that rate increase. And if this is correct, that means we now support 64,000 as our transfer rate. And our buffer is significantly larger with holding 3 million RF now. So this should be plenty to keep these running, hopefully. Now we need to start working on how to send items around. That's going to be a little bit more complicated, but still works in the same way. So now for this to work, we're going to use that tier 13 EMC link, and I'm going to set this by right-clicking it to Inferium seeds, meaning that we should be able to pull out of this and pull out of our EMC in order to get these Inferium seeds. So hopefully that will work, but we need to tell it how to extract and how to get the items into this buffer in order to send. And so this is where the actual modular router sending upgrades kind of come into play. So there is a distributor module, which will distribute items, similar to the way the power works. So this should be how we send our items. And then we also need a puller upgrade. And the MK2 is going to be the fastest. Of course, with speed upgrades, that makes it even faster. And we can put stack upgrades in this. So we need to tell this upgrade where we want to pull from. So we shift right click on here, and then we put it into the machine, and you'll see this is now going to fill up. Now it's slow at first because we haven't put any stack upgrades in here. So once we put stack upgrades and then max out the stack upgrades, now we should be able to pull a stack at a time. So I just pulled them out and they're ready to go. So this can be incredibly fast in that regards. So now at this point, we need to tell it where to send the buffer items. And that's where this distributor module is going to come into play. And we're going to select all these machines. And then when I put this in here, this should hopefully distribute all of the seeds. Unless I'm wrong, I think I have to use something else. Aha, I see where I did it wrong. We have to select the top of the machine right here, not the side. As you can see by the way the sides look, we need to tell it to send to the top because it's going to work just like a furnace. This is going to be the insert slot. So once that's done, you can see they have now gone in, and we should see them working on all of them. So if you encountered the problem I just had, at least we know you know how to solve it now, and so do I. I'm learning along with you guys because I've not used modular routers in this particular capacity because it is kind of expensive to craft all these upgrades normally. But because they have EMC, we have sort of free range to get to test this. And I love this. So now we can see how powerful, insanely powerful this particular setup can be. Now is where we need to pull. Now, since I have this buffer filled, we need to actually use another modular router for the pulling and sending. And that's where this modular router is going to come into play. Now, I think we can use a distributor module to actually pull from these machines as well. I love how I just called that a distributor, even though it's a distributor. Oh, I'm goofy. By now, to be able to pull, we should be able to click this in the air and have this transfer into router. So we have an export and we have an import mode, and we still want to keep round robin. Now on this is where we might need to reach down to the bottom of the machine, because we want to pull out of this machine here, or at least pull out from all of them. And so to do that, we'll select the bottom of said machines. And I love how you can actually see it says down. And there we go. All of them are selected. So let's go ahead and put this in. And let's see. Is it going to pull? Doesn't necessarily seem like it's doing that. Does it have to pull from the top? Oh, nope. There it goes. It's just insanely slow, it appears. I'm assuming it's because we have 0 speed upgrades and stack upgrades. So if we put all of those inside here, let's see. Is it going to go any faster? And as you can see, it does. So now that we have this pulling from here, we need to send it somewhere. And well, we're going to send it into our crafter right here. But first, I want to get this crafting Insanium essence. So for this, I just added a new slot inside of the interior craft, went ahead and forgot everything, and then remembered with the current state in here. And then we need to make sure this premium set to insert back into the crafting grid. So it needs to be applied. And then we need this one right here. So we're going to say, Supremium, you're going to upgrade into Insanium, and then make sure we use our crystal and make sure this is set to exit and see the, make sure that the Master Infusion Crystal stays inside the crafting grid while the crafting result goes into the output. And so that should be ready to go. And that should craft up, as you can see right there. And now we have Insanium. So I should be able to turn this on, but we're probably going to need another modular router to potentially send this, or we could just hook into refined storage directly. I think it'd probably be better if we just use a modular router to just wirelessly send the items down underground and connect it into our refined storage. But let's go ahead and turn this on. So we are going to need a way to send this item buffer into the actual crafter here. And so this is back again with modular routers. We are going to need a sender module. So a max sender module will probably be more than fine. So here's a sender MK2. We need a sender, which in MK2 should be fine. So let's go ahead and send. So we'll tell it where to send to, and then we put that in there, and that should, as you can see right here, do all of the crafts. Oh, also, we should probably take our power distributor and add this to it, so that way this is also sending power to this machine. And as you can see, there we're going. We're crafting Insanium at a very fast rate now. So of course, I'm ultimately going to move this setup, and well, in its current form, it's pretty long, right? We can actually set this up any way we want. We can make this a vertical column. We can make this wrap around each other, so long as we can access the bottoms of the machines to set our initial craft. We can place this however we want. This is absolutely wireless piping, and it is so nice with modular routers. So downstairs here, I have myself what is the storage drawer that we're going to hopefully send our Insanium to. And I have a external storage hooked to this. So what should happen is we send it from there, from a modular router. Now, we need to make sure we are connected to this. So with this connected, let's make sure to do this. It really doesn't matter what side you're connected to, but you need to make sure your shift clicked onto it. We know that by default, this only has a base range of 24, but this is where an actual module can be upgraded with range augments, and it can actually be upgraded in itself, which is pretty darn cool. So over here, let's get this sender to it. So we need a modular router, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is set up. So a puller upgrade, we make sure we click on here to set the puller upgrade. I'm actually going to set the bottom of this to be where it's pulling from, just to make sure it doesn't pull from the inventory slots. I don't think it can, but just to be on the safe side. And so when I put this in here, it should pull the Insanium from here. Now, as of right now, it may seem like it's not doing anything. but that's because we don't have any speed upgrades and stack upgrades. Even though I don't think we're going to need any stack upgrades, I'm just going to go with speed upgrades right now. This also has an eco mode, so that will also change how this works. Now, as soon as I put this in here, as you can see, it's going to just send to that drawer. And it's going to send it through the air wirelessly. Yes. And as you can see, it is right there in that drawer. And that's exactly what I want to happen. And now we should be able to access this from our refined storage system, and this will allow us to do auto crafts. And this is just going to be a super flawless and clean setup, especially whenever I actually move this into a different location. And yeah, because right now this is a temporary place until I can actually make the higher tier Supremium, or the higher tier Insanium reprocessors. So this right here is just simply being used to craft the Insanium for now. Now I have started to notice something, and that is, well, we're out of power. We don't have enough power to really support this. So I think making more solar panels is probably going to be a good idea. So these right here, but I think we can upgrade to the higher tiers, at least so I think. So now after upgrading to the next tier, as you can see, these all connect as a multi-block. And this is working just fine. Of course, they're all EMC-able. So really, in this pack, you really have infinite power at some point. But before even making the creative, I mean, this is a lot of power. So I just did the math, and it seems like this is producing, it looks like an Insanium roughly every 20 to 21 seconds. That's pretty fast, but it's only going to get faster. We should be able to produce this stuff at an exceedingly large rate by just simply having more reprocessors and this doing the same job. Now, I think I need to do a little bit of explaining here as to why I have used modular routers exactly and not gone the pipe route. Well, I've heard a few complaints that the pipes can actually cause your EMC system to completely just stop working. So if you're pulling too fast out of such a link such as this, for some reason, it will make it so you can't really interact with your transmutation table, which could be kind of a problem. Yeah, and the pipes mod on its ultimate upgrade can be a bit laggy, especially on servers. And so a system like this, where you can actually put these into eco mode right here, will actually make things really, really nice. However, on the bottom, the export eco mode, I don't recommend using this here, because what it'll do is if it doesn't receive an update that it needs to work for a few seconds, it will then go into a mode where it won't actually work for a few seconds. So what you'll end up with is you'll end up with a bunch of these stacked in here, and then it will finally do the operation. I think on the extract, we probably want to make sure we're pulling them out as fast as possible. But either way, these are all working very, very well. And I already have well over a stack at this point from just me fiddling around with all of the other things in this pack. Now, for the moment you guys have all been waiting for, the crafting of an iron jetpack. Yeah, we should be good at this point, right? We can just toss that in there. And now we have the best flight in the game. I just have to figure out what hotkey it is to turn it on. Okay. I give in at this point. You guys want to see flight. I've been reading the comments and you guys are like, why have you not made flight yet, Chosen? And I will say, like I said earlier, I actually, I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes I get caught up with just wanting to automate everything and not really worrying about flight, because I just don't need it unless I get stuck in a hole and then I can just place a block. So without further ado, let's make one of the best flights in the game, at least I think, because it comes with a bunch of perks, and that is the Swiftwolf Rendingale. However, we do need to have ourselves a Klein star in order to do this. So that means I need to go through at least the basic process of making the Klein stars. We're going to need to do this anyways. So to do this, it is just a consecutive or recursive craft over and over again of making and upgrading the prior tier all the way up to Klein Star Omega. However, there is even further progression past the Klein Star Omega, and that's where it gets into the project expansion, which is ultimately what we're going to need anyways to craft up these final star shards for the colossal Star Omega, which is also a Klein star. So here I go. I now have at least the Klein Star Omega, which is more than enough for right now for at least me having a Klein star on me. The way to charge this thing, you may not actually know, but To do it, you simply put it in the left slot. This right here is for charging these client related items, the things that can store EMC. This is how you actually charge them. And so now we have a fully charged client star Omega, which means that our Swiftwolf Rendingale should be able to work. And there's a slot for the client star, and it's right here. Now this has a couple of modes. We can shift right click, and now there is a band of aura around us that will push away entities and also prevent us from being attacked by things like, as you can see, it moves the mobs, from things like arrows, right? We would actually take no damage because arrows just can't even get to us, but it can also be used to keep the mobs away from you so they won't even attack you. It's a giant shield. Now also, while it's in this mode, it is using up the EMC that is coming from our client star. But since there's so much in there, we won't really notice it dropping. And then you can also double tap to go into create a flight as well while you're in this mode. So if you have as much EMC as I have, it's of course simple to just leave it in this mode. But if you turn it off and you just want to use regular flight, then you go into this. So you just have it disabled and you end up getting the blue version. Now this ring is supposedly, it supports going into the actual ring slot. So set it into what mode you want it to be set into, and then you can place it in the ring slot, and now you can access it over and over again. Now, the jetpack, that is a thing that I tested out. And the reason why I don't really want to use a jetpack is, as you can see up in the top left-hand corner, I'd have to configure to remove that. And I don't like it overlapping in the config there. And this was actually really easy to make. I could have made this really early on, but I'm not a huge fan of jetpacks. They make a lot of noise, similar to this, of course, making noise. But they also have a GUI that's usually not able to be toggled off, and I wasn't able to find a setting to do that. So without further ado, let's get rid of this sound. Yeah, this sound is something I don't quite enjoy. So I can search Project E, and you can see there are a couple of sounds that have been played recently, and it's these right here. So I actually want these to be limited by a lot. So now I will barely be able to hear that sound instead of it just constantly going every time I enter create a flight, which is probably the most annoying part about this. Now, there's also many other create a flight options. You can easily, in this pack, get yourself some mystical agriculture gear. And all you really need, I believe, in this particular version is just the chess piece from Mystical Agriculture, the Supremium chess piece. So as soon as you've made the Supremium chess piece, you can then make a flight augment. Let's see, flight. This particular augment right here. And then you use the infusion altar to make this with 4 nether stars and Supremium, and then you can put it inside of your chess piece. And that should give you creative flight. That's, like I said, many ways. There's so many ways in this pack to get creative flight. This just happens to be one of the easier ways to do it. So guys, without further ado, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you learned something new about modular routers, as I feel there's a lot of uses for this mod. It may seem compact, small, and simple, but it has a ton of utility, as you can see in its wireless power. Also, you can facade it. I didn't even show that, but you can technically change the way the block looks. Pretty darn cool. And of course, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up, specifically for Greg here. Greg really likes the thumbs up, don't you, bud? He says yes. So thank you guys so much. Of course, it is now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that huge thanks is going to go out to Agent Vu. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, over on the Discord, becoming a beautiful Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Of course, guys, I will see you in the next episode. That is, if you've clicked that subscribe button and ring that notification bell, that is. And as always, of course, guys, thanks for watching. Bye.